Hi everyone. Crazy tough times at the moment. Self-isolation, disruption to everything we're doing. You know it's got bad in England when they've had to shut the pubs. It's even happened to my local, the Oaks, and the Globe, and the Sandpiper, and the Nelson, and the Ship, and the Rising Sun, and the Bear. We've heard about this fantastic new idea out of Japan. On-nomi means online drinking. Friends getting together, sharing a drink virtually when they couldn't share one together. So we've invited some of our friends, some of our PH ambassadors, some of the people we work with to have a chat and tell us how they're getting on in this crisis.
Hello everyone, it's me again, Andy Blow from Precision Hydration, another on-nomi, online drinks in these crazy times we're experiencing. And this one's really exciting. I've been looking forward to this one all day. It's in the evening time in the UK now, and I'm chatting with a good friend of mine, Mario Fraioli. He's based on the west coast of the US, just north of San Francisco. Mario, for those of you that don't know him, is a phenomenal coach. He's a runner, he's a writer and a broadcaster, and he's actually totally one-upped us on this one by bringing his full studio podcast gear into the equation. So it's lovely to chat to you, Mario, in full clear Dolby surround sound or whatever you're recording in.
You're overselling it a little bit, Andy. I'm just in my home studio here north of San Francisco. I do have a Blue Yeti USB mic that is plugged into my laptop and these big Beats looking headphones. But beyond that, it's not too fancy of a setup, but it's a pleasure to be talking to you this afternoon.
Excellent. Well, it's called on-nomi. It's online drinks. It's late enough for me to have a proper drink here. What are you?
I'm a little jealous.
Yeah.
I'm as boring as can be right now. I've got a glass of plain water to keep myself hydrated. Cheers and healthy. I am recording another podcast after this, and I'm going to go out and run this afternoon. So I'm trying to behave myself here.
Definitely. Keeping it on the straight and narrow. Yeah. So, Mario, for people who don't know too much about your running background, I was doing a bit of sleuthing in the background yesterday and today. You've run 2:27 and 2:28 for the marathon, and you did those times about 10 or 11 years apart, you were saying, and that's quite an achievement to span that length of time of a career with those kind of performances. So how did that come about? Have you kept in shape between those times, or were they two peaks for you?
They were definitely two separate peaks for me, and it wasn't as if I was not running between those two marathons. I was running quite a bit and as consistently as I could, minus a couple injuries, but not with a lot of intention, I should say. Yeah. I was doing some races. I would do some workouts. I was running consistently, but I really wasn't too focused on trying to better my marathon personal best. And I am almost 38 years old now. I set that marathon personal best of 2:27:33 at CIM in late 2018. I was 36. Realizing that I probably realistically only had a few more years to take down that PR. And I knew that I could. And it's the only personal best that I really had any desire to try and lower. All of my other ones I'm quite content with, but that 2:28:25 that I had run in my first marathon actually back in 2007 was a thorn in my side. And finally, at the end of 2017, I said, I'm going all in on the marathon in 2018. I'm going to run two of them. I raced Boston earlier in the year in that freezing cold deluge of a day that was not meant for time, but I had a great race. I ran 2:36 or 37, I believe, and finished in the top 80.
Awesome.
But obviously not the 2:28 I was looking for, but that was okay. It wasn't about time that day. Then I had CIM on the schedule for later in the year. CIM is known as a fast course, traditionally good weather, very, very good competition, particularly that year because it was a U.S. championship, and it all came together. I had a great year overall. Training went well leading up to it, and just had myself a day and finished, I think, like 72nd place or something like that with a 2:27:33. So that's the way to do it. Just put yourself in a big crowd and go for a ride.
Yeah, that's a hell of a quality field, that when you're not breaking the top 100 with 2:27. So,
well, the year before, 2:28 would have gotten you like 108th place. So I was like, oh, if I can run 2:27 anything, I should be in the top 100, which would be great. And I ran as well as I thought I could have run, and it was like barely good enough for the top 200 that day, but it was still an amazing experience and one of the best races that I've ever executed.
Yeah, awesome. And in that chat, when you're talking about those two times, that you used the word consistency, I think at least a couple of times. And I'm thinking back to when I first came across you and it was your Morning Shakeout newsletter, which, as you know, we've all got behind at Precision Hydration. I mean, James, who's our the guy, James Phillips, who runs our customer service team, he said to me today, this is like, tell Mario, it's the one email that I like look forward to every single week. And I remember, because I looked back in my inbox today and I searched back for the Morning Shakeout, and I got issue 58, I think, was the first one where I sort of subscribed and started reading it. And now, I believe yesterday you put out number 230. So in terms of consistency and a sort of a streak in another part of life, that's incredible. How have you managed to maintain that?
Well, I've never done anything as consistently in my life as I have the Morning Shakeout. And you're correct. This morning, as we're talking, I published issue 230. So the 230th straight week, straight Tuesday morning that the Morning Shakeout has landed in inboxes around the world. And now it's just a part of my life in my week. I mean, Monday is production day for the Morning Shakeout. I also have a podcast now, which came a couple of years after the newsletter launched. But I spend my entire day on Monday putting the finishing touches on the newsletter, scheduling it for publication the next morning, and then doing the same with the podcast. It goes out later in the day. And at this point, I enjoy doing it. Absolutely. It's still my favorite thing that I do every week. And I don't want to say there's pressure to put one out every week now, but I don't want to snap the streak. I mean, 230 weeks is a great streak. And at some point it will end, as everything does, but there's no reason at this point for it to end. And I think given these times that we're in, having something that you can look forward to every week, and the Morning Shakeout is that for a lot of people, but it's also that for me. It gives some sense of normalcy and routine to my own life, despite how chaotic and crazy and uncertain things are around me. And I mean, for that reason alone, I don't want to stop doing it anytime soon.
No, we don't want you to stop either, because we're all avid readers. Have you found that you've picked up more subscribers in the last few weeks than normal, or is it what's the situation with that?
That's an interesting question. I don't really crunch the numbers all that much. I did look at how many people it went out to this morning, and it was about 10,500. And I think last week it was, 10,400 low, maybe 420 or something like that. Which means I gained probably 80-ish subscribers in the last week. And I probably lost some as well. I'm not sure. And I think that's a pretty good week in terms of growth. But what I've heard from readers such as yourself who have been subscribed for a while and look forward to it every week is that despite everything else that's going on, they can count on that being in their inbox every Tuesday at the same time. And it's become a part of their week, and they can rely on it. And I mean, obviously, the more it grows, the better that is. And I'm glad it's resonating. But for the people who have come to expect it every week, I'm glad that it's just a beacon of positivity during an otherwise, kind of crazy time.
Well, I think what we love about it is positive. It's from the heart, clearly. But it's also that you kind of touch on a lot of subjects in quite a lot of depth. And one of the ones that I've really appreciated myself in the last few years is you've written a fair bit about burnout, and that's something which I think is very common in athletes, obviously on a physical sort of mental level with overtraining and that kind of thing, but also increasingly you see it a lot. I've certainly experienced it both as an athlete in terms of overtraining, but also as an entrepreneur and someone who's trying to grow a business and be a father and continue my training and all those kinds of, so kind of more like life burnout than just athletic burnout. And, I've read a lot of what you've written about it. I've read a lot of what people like Brad Stulberg and Steve Magnus have written about it and others in that. And I think it's provided a really important, way to then understand your own experiences, because until you read someone else writing about it, you don't necessarily know that other people are going through similar things. So that's been huge. And one thing I wanted to ask you specifically about the burnout side of things is, you're a coach now. How do you seek to kind of teach people about burnout before it happens? Because most of us have learned about it the hard way. How do you use your experiences to counter that?
I try to use my experience to spot the signs of it in other people before they go too far down that road of burnout or overdoing it, whether that's in their training or in their work life or even in their personal life. And oftentimes it's all of those things piled on top of one another, as it has been for you and has been for me. So as a coach, one of the biggest things that I value with my athletes is communication. We're in touch a lot. We talk about their workouts and races, obviously, but I also talk to them a lot more about what's going on in their life outside of that, and how it's complementing their training, and then vice versa, making sure that their training and their racing is, occupying a healthy space in the rest of their lives. And for me, more so than evaluating data and everything else, like that's the main thing that I'm looking out for, is making sure that when I'm assigning training to an athlete, that it's productive and it's helping them get closer to their goals, but at the same time making sure it's not becoming this overwhelming thing or something that they're taking too seriously, even if they are professional athletes. I have a few of those as well. There's got to be a balance there. And if you want to be great at something, anything, things are going to be out of balance, but eventually it has to swing back the other way. So that's something that I'm constantly keeping an eye out for. And it's easy to pick up in conversation, especially with the athletes I've been working with for a long time. We're open and honest with each other. And if they're feeling fried, they'll tell me. And as soon as I hear that, I'll make adjustments on my end. I can't pull all the strings in the rest of their life, but I can on the training front. So it's like, if training isn't productive or it's not occupying a productive place in their life, like we'll change something, whether that's cutting back on volume, modulating the intensity, just taking a different approach altogether. Maybe it's taking time off altogether. We'll do that. But, it's something that I keep a close eye out for, as much or more than I do the day-to-day, workouts that they're doing, and if they're hitting the prescribed paces or whatever it may be.
Yeah, definitely. I think, trying to figure out how it fits into that picture. And I've always found it interesting that, at one point in my life, training stress was probably the biggest stress that I had. And now actually exercise and running in particular, actually outdoors, is probably one of the biggest stress relievers. So I have to be careful not to go too hard with the running, because it stops being the medicine and it starts being part of the problem.
Exactly. And the way that I look at coaching, or at least one of the ways that I look at coaching, is I'm in the business of stress management. That's exactly it. And I can apply and modulate the training stress that I'm prescribing an athlete. And I can understand the stress that they're dealing with in the rest of their lives, personal, professional, emotional, and otherwise. I can't always control those things. Most of the time I can't control those things, but training is one of those stresses. It should be a productive stress. And if it's not a productive stress, and they're not responding to it, then we've got to make changes, as you had just described. And I look out for that in my own life now too, because I have definitely been in a place where training has not been a productive stress. And those are the times that I've gotten sick, or I've had a hard time just getting my shoes on and getting out the door. I haven't wanted to work out. Races aren't exciting or appealing. And I think a lot of people listening to this have probably been there as well. And it's just developing better self-awareness over time, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think self-awareness is a huge part of the puzzle there, understanding why you're doing what you're doing. On that note, what's your current sort of training response for you personally to this situation you're in at the moment, where races are off the menu, whether you want them or not? How are you finding that this is affecting your exercise regime?
So I'll rewind a few months. I ran the New York City Marathon in November, and it went well for me. I ran 2:34, executed really well. I was really happy with the performance I had on that day. And not long afterward, I decided to not put any races on my calendar for the rest of 2019 and for the foreseeable future in 2020, before any of this COVID-19 craziness hit us from out of nowhere. And I've been running, and I've been doing some workouts with my athletes, local athletes that I coach, just sort of jumping in to help them out through intervals or tempos or long runs, whatever. My volume was not very high. I was probably hitting, for me anyway, I was probably hitting about 40 miles a week, 45 miles a week. When typically, I'm more in the, 60 to 70 range. Yeah. So I was operating at about, 2/3 of my normal volume, and just really random intensity. So I was keeping a decent baseline level of fitness. Yeah. And in February, a good friend of mine, Michael Zinski, who's a local triathlon coach here in the Bay Area.
Yeah, Mike works with Purple Patch, is that right?
He does, exactly. He works for Matt Dixon at Purple Patch. Well, he coaches triathletes, but Mike has been really into track the last couple of years, and I've been helping him out. And he actually started racing. We start early here in California because we have the weather to do it. But he started doing these open meets in February, and he was running 1,500 meters in the mile. I think he might have thrown in a 3K, and I jumped in a couple workouts with him just to help him out and spend some time together. And I got excited. I'm like, I really don't feel like training for anything long right now. I can't make the commitment to a marathon or even a half, but man, it would be a lot of fun to race on the track. It'd been a long time since I had done that. I raced collegiately on the track. I've run sub 4:10 for the mile, but it's been a long time since I've done that with any kind of focus. So I started doing some more workouts with Mike, started getting back into doing some drills, bumped up my mileage a little bit. And we were planning on doing some road miles in May, June. There were some summer track meets that would run from July through September that we were going to target. All of that, as far as I know, is off the table right now, given the situation that we're in. And I can't train with Mike or Nate, my two main training partners, anymore, because we're not allowed to work out in groups and the whole social distancing thing and all of that. We got one workout in, the three of us, on March 11th before shelter-in-place orders were put on us here in the Bay Area where we live. But we've been doing, so that was 4 weeks ago, but we've been doing weekly workouts on our own, and I've been sending out the sessions to them, and we've been doing it on our own and keeping one another excited and motivated. And I've unintentionally gotten kind of fit by doing that. And I did, I joined this like virtual race for podcasters, for running podcasters that this guy, Matt Chittum, the Rambling Runner, put on. He created like these teams of two, and the three distances were 5K, 10K, half marathon. And 2 weeks ago, I did a 5K on my own and ran a 15:50. And that surprised me. I really didn't think I'd run much faster than, say, like 16:30 or so. But I ran a 15:50, and I ran hard, but I felt pretty good about it. Did the 10K this past week, and I'll do the half marathon. I don't really look at those as races because I'm just racing the clock, and to me that's not racing. I mean, that's pacing. And while I did run hard for the 5K, I took the 10K as a bit of a tempo. I'll do the half marathon this weekend as sort of a long, steady run. But like I feel great, and I feel like somewhat fit. Like I don't feel anywhere close to PR fit, certainly for the mile. And I don't have any delusions of being able to do that anytime soon, but I'm excited. And I don't know if we'll have any more races between now and the end of the year. If we do, great. And I may take advantage of some of those, but I'm just enjoying the process and the routine of getting out every day. I've got like a 34-day streak going right now. I've been doing workouts on Wednesdays. I've been doing another one on Friday. I've actually been sleeping really well and consistently since I'm not traveling or going anywhere. So I'm recovering a lot better, and I feel great, and I'm excited to race at some point whenever things start to clear up for everyone and events are back on the calendar. Maybe there'll be an opportunity to do some local track meets this summer, maybe not, but I'll channel it somewhere when I can. But I am excited right now, and I think just being able to go, through the process and do workouts and, have my buddies to keep me accountable and motivated, and just being generally completely process oriented, since there are no events to get ready for right now, has reinvigorated me on some level. And, once we are out of this mess, I for one will be, excited to race again. So I'm looking at, this trying time is, also a bit of a benefit.
Yeah, a bit of preparation time. I think I'd agree with you on a lot of that. I've found that, and I think we're really lucky as people who run, runners and even triathletes and stuff. I know triathletes can't get in the pool at the moment, which is frustrating a lot of them. But we've got to feel sorry for the people whose sports have been completely taken off the table by this, because that normal outlet isn't quite as available. I mean, one thing I've seen locally, and I've spoken to a few people in different areas. I spoke to a couple of friends of mine who are triathletes down in San Diego recently, and we've all said the same thing. Like, when you go out on the morning, I'm going out at 6:30 a.m. in the UK down the beachfront, and there are a ton of people out for their morning run or their morning exercise who weren't there, a month ago. Are you seeing that at all? Are you seeing like people getting out and doing more?
Yeah, I absolutely am. And I live in cow country in northern Marin County, not as densely populated as some of the other areas around us. And we can only run from our homes right now. I haven't driven somewhere to run in a month, but in my neighborhood and along the main recreational path near my house, I have seen a huge increase in traffic in terms of runners, walkers, dog walkers, cyclists on the road, because it's all anyone can do right now. And I've even seen, and I, like you, I run at about the same time every day. So, I'm used to the normal traffic patterns, and it is definitely a lot more congested now, which ordinarily I'd be really excited about. Right now it's a little harrowing because we're trying to keep our space and keep one another healthy, but I'm hopeful that this will continue once things normalize and we can get back to our regular schedules. So I'm definitely noticing it here, and I don't live in a very densely populated place. I have friends who live in San Francisco, in southern Marin County, where it is a little more densely populated, San Diego as well. I have athletes I coach in New York, and they're seeing the same things where they live, especially in the metropolitan areas where they mostly only use these bigger parks for recreation, to the point where it's gotten a little dangerous to go out during certain hours because it is so congested. So they've either got to go early. I've got one woman I coach in New York who's only run on the treadmill for the last 3 weeks because Prospect Park in Brooklyn is just packed and it's impossible to stay 6 feet away from people. So, the optimistic side of me is hoping that once we're through this, there is a bit of a boom in terms of running, exercise, fitness, maybe triathlon, people realizing that it's pretty easy to get outside and move, and convenient. You can do it from anywhere. I've seen people on the path here who I don't normally see, but who it doesn't, not to judge, but it doesn't look like that they were runners a month ago. You see people, and obviously I can't stop and talk to them right now and get their story, but I try to figure it out in my head. I'm like, I wonder if this is a person who typically goes to a gym and gets on the treadmill and maybe hammers away for half an hour, and they're finally taking advantage of this bike path that's outside, or this path that's, outside their home, and they can get some fresh air, and, they can go further than they ever thought, and they can explore a little bit. And hopefully once we're through this, like, that continues. I'd love to see that. I think that'd be, a great thing for humanity as a whole.
Definitely. One thing I've noticed, and I've tried to encourage and I've tried to participate in with my early morning runs, is that there's a lot of friendliness. When you're a cyclist, there's always a lot of nodding and waving that goes on when you pass other groups of cyclists, or the cyclists going the other way on the road. And, out on the morning run, I would say it's kind of a little bit more 50-50. But at the moment, because we're having to keep our distance, and if you're running down the sidewalk towards someone and you kind of both keep your distance, it kind of feels a lot more necessary and a lot nicer to acknowledge the person, smile, wave, say good morning or whatever. And I've seen a lot of solidarity.
Same.
People who are out doing the same thing, unusually so, because normally if you're running hard, you got your head down, you blow by, don't you, and that's it.
Exactly. We're all in the same boat right now. I'm certainly seeing that. People are trying to be respectful of other space, but they are looking up, they are waving, saying hello, saying good morning. I'm even seeing it at the grocery store when we go shopping. We've got a queue up outside, and everyone is 6 feet apart, but people are generally pretty friendly and understanding, because everyone else is in the same situation that they are, and we're all just trying to get through. And I think if we can take that forward with us as a society, whether it's when we're out running, when we're just out in public, being more respectful of one another, just being friendly, saying hello, realizing that at the end of the day, even when times aren't trying, we're all in this together, we'll all be better off for it.
Definitely. I think that's a huge thing. One thing as well, I think, Mario, you definitely need to get a shirt printed with "subscribe to the Morning Shakeout" while you're out, because there's all these new eyeballs that you've got out there.
I've thought of that. I do have stickers, and I almost I've got to stay away from people, but I almost want to have like stickers that I can, that I can hand out. But yeah, that would be a great idea. I should make some sort of a t-shirt that's very visible, and it just says, subscribe, themorningshakeout.com/subscribe, for running inspiration and entertainment and all of that.
When I get back to traveling, I'm doing my bit for you, because I've got shakeout stickers on my travel case and also on the back of my laptop, because people need to know. I've got a couple of other questions for you. These have come from people in the Precision Hydration team. Okay. And this was a really interesting one that I thought that Sean asked me. He said, okay, so there's always opportunity in crisis, and one opportunity that he thinks, but he doesn't have any sort of domain specific knowledge on, is that there'll be athletes at the moment who were preparing for big events, Tokyo maybe, and other stuff, who were at a disadvantage. Maybe they're injured or maybe sidelined or something like that, who are now rubbing their hands together because they've got an extra year, because they've got a pass for 2020. Is there anyone you can think of who you think is going to come out of this on the winning side, maybe in the US, running sphere?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Off the top of my head, I can't think of anyone in particular who's going to benefit from having a bit more time. We just had our marathon trials here in late February, and everyone who made the team looked pretty good in doing so, and I think would have been ready to compete in Tokyo come summertime. Now they all have an extra year, so hopefully they can continue to stay healthy and just learn to become better marathon racers. They'll probably be able to get another marathon in before the Olympics now, so they can work on championship racing.
Excuse my ignorance on this point, but do they all maintain their qualification status? Is that the theory at the moment?
They do. USA Track and Field is not going to rehost the marathon trial, so the team is the team, and the 6 individuals who made it will still represent the United States in 2021 in Tokyo. But all of those athletes now have a bit more time, so they can make sure they're fully healthy, can get another marathon in, as I said, and gain some experience in that way, or at least, some of the younger folks like Molly Seidel, Jake Riley, who aren't quite as well. I mean, they're obviously great marathoners. They made the team, but not quite as well versed in that championship style racing.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see what they can do with another year under their belt. Yeah. So that should be interesting. But I can't think of anyone else individually off the top of my head here in the U.S. or elsewhere that is going to benefit directly. And I mean, at this point, we don't know when racing is going to return either. Assuming some fall marathons happen, that should be pretty interesting. Having 5 marathon majors races in an 8-week period. I'm curious. I mean, realistically, and I say realistically because I don't want to sound pessimistic, I don't think we'll see all of those races go off as planned.
Well, funnily enough, that was another of Sean's questions. He was asking how many majors do you think will actually take place? Because, I mean, clearly the thinking behind that is obviously, the weird thing about this, the spread of this virus, is that everyone around the world is kind of out of sync. So there may be pockets of places where we're in the clear, or the vaccine's being deployed successfully if we can get one and whatnot. But if you're in a clean place where you could host something, do you want people flying in from
exactly
a million different countries? It's a big question.
Yeah, and that's the big unanswered question at this point. I would say generally, the later a race is scheduled, the better likelihood there is that we'll see it happen. So New York in November being the last one is possible, but New York is the epicenter of this right now in the United States, and it's also the biggest event. And I do think even if we are in a better place where the spread of the virus has slowed, there's not going to be a vaccine by November. I wonder if local officials in a place like New York, or these are all major cities, local officials in whatever major city are going to be keen on having a large gathering of 20 to 55,000 people who are coming in from all over the world, if they're even able to travel throughout the world at that point, in close proximity to one another, in hotel rooms, spreading through the city, and then once the race starts, breathing all over each other. The risk is going to be really high, and obviously, just general health and the general health and safety of everyone is most important. And I mean, as much as I'd love to see fall marathons happen, because I think it will signal some return to normalcy, I also don't want to see another surge in coronavirus cases this fall and have our world be back at square one heading into 2021.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm actually going to change gears at this point, because I've got another question here from JP. And because JP said that there's a bit of a joke in the office, because we're all kind of, a lot of us are kind of into shoes. Runners generally are into shoes, not especially these days. But I mean, even so, going back, we're all like always trying.
You're speaking my language. I love shoes.
Yeah, I know you do. And that's what I was going to ask. So JP said, ask Mario, what are his 3 all-time top running shoes?
All-time top running shoes. Okay.
Training for performance or whatever, just for whatever reason, like your top 3. I've actually written my top 3 down so we can talk about those if you want to in a minute, but I'm interested to hear yours.
Okay. The first one that comes to mind is the Adidas Supernova Classic. Yeah. I had, from my senior year of college on, which was 2003 through probably 2007 or 2008, I must have had 100 pairs of that shoe. And I was fortunate to have been racing on the Boston Athletic Association racing team for 2 years, and would be given multiple pairs of those shoes on a regular basis. I think you can still get them, but I haven't run in that particular shoe in several years, but I loved it when I did. And I had many pairs of them. Right before that, in college, I was a big Asics 2000 series guy. I think they would change them. They had, like, at the time, it was like the 2070, 2080, 2090, then 2100, then like 2110, like all of those. I had tons of those shoes. And looking back, it's actually kind of funny knowing what I know now about shoes. I didn't need a stability shoe. And that was a stability shoe with the Duo Max wedge in addition to the EVA foam. But I never had any problems with them. And I really just enjoyed running in that shoe and got multiple pairs of them. Same with the Supernova Classic. I guess technically it was a stability shoe, but the posting wasn't nearly as heavy as the ASICS series. But they worked for me. And I really enjoyed those two shoes. And then a little more recently, I would say the Nike Pegasus Trail, the current version of it.
Yeah.
I've been running quite a bit in, and they're perfect for the trails that we have here in the Bay Area, which aren't very technical. And oftentimes I need to run a couple miles of road to get to them. That shoe, it just fits my foot really well. It's super versatile. It's perfect for where I typically run, and it seems to be able to handle a pretty good beating. I think I've got 400 miles on my current pair, and they still feel great. I haven't put a fresh pair on in a while, so it'll be interesting to see the difference. But I've just been like pleasantly surprised by how much I love that shoe, because the current version of the Road Pegasus, I don't like it at all. It just doesn't fit my foot. It's got a weird feeling under the arch for me. But the Peg Trail, the one that is in line currently, is just an awesome shoe. And I would have worn it just for road runs, even though it's technically a trail shoe. So for the types of trails that I run, it's perfect.
Yeah, the Pegasus actually made my list because, but totally at the other end, I was running in. I ran in lots and lots of pairs of Air Pegasus in the mid-90s. That was my go-to shoe for all round. And before they did a trail version, what my dad used to do was, in the UK, there was a company that made fell running shoes, and you could send your kind of beaten up old road shoes and have a trail sole put on them.
Oh,
and
no way.
they would just rip the rubber outsole off. Sometimes they could replace the midsole as well, but a lot of the time they just peeled the outsole off, and they stuck like an aggressive kind of waffle sole or like a fell running type sole on the bottom. So we used to have those for long cross country races, and I would I remember, I think once I probably even sent a new pair to have that done, so because I love that shoe so much.
That's a great story.
But then they did like the classic thing that you've just said. They changed the design, don't they? And then like the next iteration of it, just didn't work as well. And then
that's the story of every shoe that's ever existed, though.
Well, I was going to say that, except for my next one on my list is the because I did a lot of fell running, trail running in the UK where it's boggy and wet and you need a really aggressive sole. I used the Salomon Speed Cross for years, and that, I don't know when that came out. It was maybe the early 2000s, and I got the first versions of it. It has a big high heel wedge, so it's really tall at the back and a lot of drop, and super aggressive outsole. And it was perfect for the type of running that I would often do through muddy fields and like slipping and sliding. And I bought a pair last year to do a cross-country race. And even though it's kind of the version 7 or something, it's very, very close to V1. And that's one of like the exceptions to that basic rule that, shoe companies kind of keep the name, but it's, it's not the same shoe. In the UK, we'd call it like Trigger's broom. There's this old, I don't know if you know Only Fools and Horses, but there's a guy called Trigger in it, and he had a broom, and they asked him how long he's had it, and he says 25 years, but he's changed the head 3 times and the shaft another 6 times, but it's it's still the same broom. It's kind of that thing. And because the other one of mine was the Nike Mariah Racing Flat, but that's totally changed. That's a different shoe nowadays.
That's a little before my time as a racer, but I've heard other runners that I know who just rave about that shoe. The first one that they made
was like it was like a beauty. It was so light and so thin, and just, you had to be. I would never have probably run more than. I might have run a half marathon in it, but usually it was for 5 or 10K. And maybe I look back at it fondly because I was in shape and I was running fast times when I wore them. But these things, you could like take them out of the box, go for a run, and you felt like $1 million in them. They were just, and they had nice little bits of gold stitching, and they were like totally cool.
They probably cost several $100s online now if you're able to find yourself a pair. I bet it's like one of those like eBay, one of those like eBay star shoes that people would just pay oodles of money for to have in their collection.
One of the original Eugene, Oregon, kind of standouts. Yeah.
Sure.
That's cool. Very good. So last question for you before I let you go, Mario, because I know you're going to record a podcast. You've touched on one thing already, but I'm going to make you, dig deeper and think about something else. There's a lot of bad going on at the moment, no question about it. This is a tough time. There are good things coming out of it, though. I mean, I'll share one from my personal situation, which is obviously I travel a lot normally with work. I'm totally grounded now. I'm spending all my time at home, and in the last 2.5 weeks, both my kids have learned to ride bikes, and we've been going out biking most days in the morning, which has been amazing because it's just happened just like that. But it's not been just like that. It's been because my wife and I have had the time to spend hours like getting involved and doing that. I mean, that makes me sound bad. We're not absent parents generally, but we don't spend like all hours all days with the kids. Yeah. And that has been so good. And I will totally remember that for whatever happens through this crisis now at the other side. This will be the time which I remember for that experience of seeing the kids. Both kids, they're 3 and 6, and they're both now off riding independently, and it's fantastic. So that's kind of my good thing that I'm taking out of this time at the moment. What do you think you're going to take away, or what have you taken away so far that's a good thing?
Along those lines, my wife and I don't have children, but we are both stuck at home right now. And I work from home typically, so it's not that much of a disruption for me from a day-to-day, but it's a big disruption for her. She's used to going into San Francisco and being in her office and around others. And we just got a dog 4.5 months ago. So we're all home, and it's been great to just have that time together. And we have fallen into a very steady routine from when we wake up in the morning to what the first couple hours of the day look like. Then we work throughout the day, and we're fortunate enough that we're able to do that. But we call it quits at right around 5 o'clock. And then we go out for a family walk together in the evenings. And life is just really simple right now, and our world is very small. And that's going to change. I, like you, travel quite a bit. I go to a lot of events, but I think once we do come out of this and we return to some semblance of what normalcy was before, I want to make sure we retain some of that. And it's really been a poignant reminder for us that you don't need a lot to truly be happy. You just, you need each other. And we miss our friends and we miss our family, and we'll certainly be spending more time with them when we're able to do that. But it doesn't take a lot to be happy, and happiness isn't, something that you chase. It's something that you feel when the right pieces are in place. So, we feel like we've put some really good pieces in place over these last few weeks, and we want to maintain that, moving forward. And we will travel, and I'll do that for work, and Christine will go back into the city, but I think we will try to make more of an effort to spend more time at home and in our own community. And I mean, we haven't been able to hang out with our neighbors or do group gatherings and that sort of things. It's not allowable right now, but as you described earlier, when you're out running, and what I've seen when I'm out running and when we're at the grocery store, there is definitely a feeling of community and solidarity right now that was missing before. And I want to work to try and maintain that. And I think that is one of the silver linings of this situation. So, for me, it's just really continuing to appreciate and cultivate the simplicity and smallness of life as we know it right now, even though it won't always be this simple and this small, but it doesn't have to be as crazy and complicated as it was before.
Awesome. I think that's a fantastic message, and fantastic place to end this on. So thank you very much, and I've really enjoyed talking to you, something that we wouldn't have done normally.
Well, I mean, fortunately you do come through California fairly regularly for someone who lives in the UK, and every time you do, you're always great about sending me a note and trying to get together for a run or a drink, which I appreciate. So given that we can't do that right now, and who knows when we'll be able to, it was fun to just, hop online here for 45 minutes or so and chat and catch up. And I really enjoyed it. So thank you for having me and reaching out.
No problem. And I will, see you for a run or a coffee next time I'm in the Bay Area, whenever that is.
I look forward to it.
Bye-bye.